Here's something most people don't realize. In 1903, North Carolina had more licensed, permitted distilleries than any other state in the country. And in 1904, a lot of those businesses were shut down because they were feeding into large warehousing and bottling operations in Statesville, North Carolina. And they chose Statesville because 2 railroad lines crossed there, and at that time you could get anywhere in the country from Statesville, North Carolina. And then just 4 short years later, the North Carolina legislature imposed prohibition. So every winery, every brewery, every distillery in the state shut down in 1908. So there was no way to even get a permit to distill until 1979. And we didn't get a legal post-prohibition distillery in North Carolina until 2005. We invented bourbon here. I think a lot of people don't realize that. There are records of making corn whiskey in North Carolina as far back as 1682. Okay, so people were making corn whiskey here before Kentucky was even an idea.
It was still North Carolina.
Right, Kentucky was part of North Carolina. And because of their inability to pronounce certain words, no, I'm sorry.
We cut them off.
I think, that's all been lost, and there's a whole lot of marketing around it, but that spirit was really born here. And everyone was putting spirit into barrels, and many of the barrels were charred, and they were charred because that's how you cleaned out a barrel. If you had a bunch of flour in a barrel and you needed to clean it out, you didn't wash it with water, you took it to a cooper. They'd pop the heads off, set it on fire, burn it clean, and put the heads back on, and then you could use it for something like whiskey. And so you had 430 little family farm distilleries that were taking all of that produce from the farm that they were growing on small plots. You couldn't get it to market cost effectively. We didn't have the roads in this state. And they took that grain product, turned it into a much more compact form, a value-added agricultural product, and then they shipped it to Statesville, which was always buying, right? And what happened after Prohibition started? Family farms in this country, within about 4 or 5 years, started to go bankrupt because there was no use for all of that agricultural product. Because the only thing you could do is take it to the railroad siding and take whatever crappy price you would get from the railroad agent. And by that point in this state, most of the distilleries had long since closed. Prohibition was in full effect.
They closed, but they reopened in the mountains.
NASCAR!
So I think that's a lot of people don't realize our history here is our distillers went to the mountains. A lot of them did go to Kentucky. So a lot of these family farms did just go up and go distill in Kentucky, but the other ones stopped in the mountains and they did what they did in Scotland and Ireland. Is they evaded the tax man, they made moonshine, which then led to us being the home of NASCAR. So,
yep. And we were the #1 spirits producing state all through Prohibition. One of the beautiful things about there not being legal bourbon in North Carolina for a century almost is that we were able to write that story for the first time anew. We have the benefits of all the modern technology, but at the same time, we're writing that story of careful pot distillation. We're mashing everything without a whole bunch of automation. Everything's done by hand. And we're creating this, and we're able to establish the reputation of North Carolina as the best bourbon in the world. That's an amazing honor to be on the ground as that's happening, and to have our distillery be the one that's winning those accolades.